Hey everyone, it's me, Jerry Watkins. This episode of Marketing Strategies is called Telemarketing, the Introduction. Today we're going to focus on the first 30 seconds, Blueberries, average talk time, and listening to get the sale. Now, when I talk about the first 30 seconds, what am I talking about? When someone calls you at your own home, you got to remember, it's just like if you were going to answer the phone, they're the same as you. In fact, they're probably better at your job than you are. You got to figure, if a person is had a phone line and they've been getting phone calls for how long have they had their phone? If you're talking to somebody that's had their phone for, let's say, 10 years, let's just say 10 years. If they've only had their phone for 10 years, how many calls do you think they've gotten in that amount of time? Kind of hard to develop a calculation for that, right? So let's break it down a little bit. Let's say 5 years. How many calls do you think they've gotten in 5 years? Still a hard number. So let's go a little bit smaller and let's say 1 year. In fact, let's bring it down to 1 month. How many marketing calls do you think that they're getting in 1 month? Then take whatever number you thought it was and ask yourself the same question. How many calls are they getting in a week? How many calls are they getting in a day? Is it one a day? Is it one a week? Is it one a month? Let's say for the sake of argument, it's one a week. Then take that, times it by 52 weeks, times 10 years. That's a lot of phone calls. They're really good at this. They know the scripts. They know the objections, the rebuttal process, the closing process. Don't let them fool you. But they love the game. People love to be sold. So that's what we're here to do. We're here to call them up, present an option, and sell them. The issue is when anybody calls somebody right now, you got about 30 seconds. In the first 30 seconds, they want to know, who are you, what do you want, and how can I get rid of you? I mean, think about it. It doesn't matter who it is. It could be one of your friends. Who is this? What do you want? Okay, I got to go. Everyone's really busy. They're always so busy. Everybody, doesn't matter. You'll be sitting back doing nothing. I'm busy doing nothing. Let me finish doing nothing. So, who are you? What do you want? And how can I get rid of you? The good news is when you give somebody a call, you're already going into that platform. You're telling them who you are, and you're kind of hinting to them as to what you want based off of what your company's name is. If your company gives any inclination as to what it is you're offering or selling, then you're telling them what you want right there. However, keep in mind, that gives them a quick and easy out if you allow them to use it to tell you how to they know how to get rid of you. They know how to get rid of you, for instance, if you call up and say, hey, I'm calling with Joe Schmo's Home Improvement Company. It's easy for them to say, I don't need any home improvements as soon as you say you're with a home improvement company. Don't let that stop you. It's a sales defense. It's a block. It's just going to come right up, and it doesn't mean anything. For a lot of people, it's a natural reflex. Just like, for instance, if you go into a store, say you go in to buy a TV in an electronics store, you could have a few $1,000s in your wallet and go in there with the intention to purchase a TV, or for that matter, a car in a car lot. But when a sales rep walks up to you, most likely, when he comes up and says, hey, are you looking to get a TV? You're going to say, oh, no, I'm just looking. I'm just looking right now. Even though right after he walks away, if he does walk away, you realize, I'm going to get a TV, but you don't want to be bothered. You want to be able to make a decision without having someone come in and just try and sell you. So you want to be careful in that first 30 seconds that you don't sound like you're just trying to sell them, because they're not going to hear what you're saying. You always got to remember, they're always going to hear this. I don't care who you are, what you want, I just want your money. And so that's what they're hearing from you. I just want your money. I don't care what you just said. Only thing I heard was, this is why you're not going to give me money? Let me tell you why you're going to give me money. So don't have the conversation like that. And another way to get past that 30 seconds is to realize that if you treat them like a client, they're going to treat you like a sales representative. So unless you want to be treated like a sales representative, you probably shouldn't treat them like a client. Depends on who you're talking to. If you're talking to Joe, then treat him like Joe. Just like if you had met somebody on the street or in a bar or wherever you were, but they said, hey, my name's Joe. Treat them like they're Joe. Don't treat them like, hey, you're a client, I want your money. It's going to come across in your voice. It's going to come across in your attitude. It's going to come across in your inflection and your words. they're going to hear it and they are going to run. I always call it, don't scare the cat. It's like a little cat's coming by you. You ever have a cat come by you and you want to pet it? And so you kind of sneak over to it and it kind of sneaks over to you. But if you make one quick move, or if they hear a sound somewhere, it's going to run away. So don't scare the cat. You're in a very delicate dance in the first 30 seconds. Who are you? What do you want? And how can I get rid of you? So, an easy way to get through that is to kind of play into the how can they get rid of you phase. They want the opportunity to exit the call gracefully. Nobody wants to really be mean to a marketer, or to anybody for that matter. I'm sure there are some people out there, but the majority of people, I promise you, they are not interested in being rude to other people. It's just not the case. It's a very, very seldom case nowadays where I ever get yelled at on the phone or I ever have an issue with anybody. I'm polite, they're polite. I treat them like who they are. I treat them like a person. They treat me like a person. Okay, Blueberries. Some of you guys may be wondering, what is Blueberries and what does that have to do with anything? Blueberries is another tactic to get through that first 30 seconds. It's that 30-second barrier that you got, that the homeowners answer the phone, the clients answer the phone, and they're hanging. You ever go to answer if you have a landline, or if you've seen one. A lot of people today, I don't even know if they've ever seen a landline, but they go to answer the phone and they pick it up and they're kind of leaning into it. It's that second when they relax. You can hear it in their tone of voice. You can hear it when they finally relax and they either take the phone, if it's a cordless phone, and they continue walking, or they lean back in their chair and they actually get comfortable. They're dedicated to the conversation. They are with you. Pay attention to that sound. It typically comes right around that 30-second mark, and if you can catch that sound, then you can be aware that they've committed to the conversation and you can eliminate your own fear, because most marketers have a sense of fear that the client is going to hang up the phone. It's funny, a mentor of mine a long time ago told me, you know, he told me to say something on the phone. I said, I don't want to say that. So, well, why not? What's the problem? Said, they may hang up on me. He said, they're going to hang up on you anyways. It was true, right? I mean, even if you get the sale, at the end, that's the goal. The goal is to hang up the phone. It's just how you go about hanging up the phone and what's happened preceding that phone hanging up. That's what's important, right? So Blueberries. Blueberries is an opportunity you can use any time in the call, any time in the presentation, anytime. I don't suggest it as much in the close, but it can be used there. It's a very useful tool, and it doesn't necessarily have to be Blueberries, but that's the word I use. It's what I've been using for years. It's as simple as you're talking to the person in the first 30 seconds. They want to know, who are you, what do you want, and how can I get rid of you? They're getting to that point where it's how can I get rid of you, and you're trying to duck and dodge and think of something to say to generate a conversation, because that's how you get past that 30 seconds. If they're not interested in your conversation, in your sales pitch, you got to get into a real conversation with them. You got to give them the opportunity to talk. And some people are very rigid. You go to talk to them, and they're quick and short, simple answers. All right, what do you want? And how can I get rid of you? Really quick. So, Blueberries is something that you can just blurt out out of nowhere, any position, any time in the conversation. They're talking to you, and, oh yeah, you know, I'm not really interested in the Blueberries. Oh, Blueberries. What? It's gonna make people either laugh or they're going to be completely perplexed by what you just said. And it gives you the opportunity to breathe for a second. They're not going to hang up the phone after you say that. There's always a small percentage of anybody out there that's going to do anything at some point in time. But I'm telling you, I do what works most of the time on most of the people so that I can make most of the money. You'll hear me say that again and again and again. I do what works most of the time on most of the people so that I can make most of the money. And when I say Blueberries, most of the people out there, I can stop and I can wait now, and they're not going to hang up the phone. They may say something, but it gives me time to gather my thoughts, and it gives them time to realize that I'm not just a telemarketer or a sales representative. I'm a person. I have faults. I stumble. I'm not just directly tied to any individual script. I'm prone to error. like humans aren't. If you act like you're a human, they'll treat you like a human. So I say blueberries. It gives me an opportunity to, what, blueberries? Oh, I gotta go get blueberries. Or, oh, you know, I like blueberry pancakes. I've been dying for them and thinking about it for the last 4 years. And it's not a lie, because I think about blueberries all the time. I'm really not the biggest fan of blueberries. It's just something, it's one of those words that I can say on the phone and it seems to stop people in their tracks. But you could say strawberries. Heck, you could say blue wallpaper. You could say green cat. Green cat. Oh, there was this video on YouTube and it had a green cat in it. Anything. It doesn't matter as long as it's completely off topic, completely off base, and it throws them back for a second. It makes them stop. It makes you stop. It gives, wherever point you're in, it gives everyone a second to cool down and regroup. And sometimes that's what you need. So in that first 30 seconds, and sometimes after that, you may need to use blueberries. Keep that in mind. Now, average talk time is extremely important. It depends on what type of sale you're in, but for appointment setting, average talk time I've found in almost any industry, and this is not a guarantee that it's any industry, but in most industries I've been in, average talk time, you want to be around 1.5 minutes. Now, some people have difference of opinion on this, just like they do following the script. I'm not a fan of following the script. I don't think life is scripted. But I do think that the average talk time should come out to be about 1.5 minutes at the end of the day. If I add up all my calls and all my talk time, which, by the way, so you do know, I never do. I've done it at one point in time. I'm really big in statistics, but when it comes to this game, the marketing game and telemarketing, you cannot dwell on those type of statistics every day and every minute. Because you got to face it, this business is a lot of rejection. The majority of the business is rejection and defeat. We only win occasionally. Even if you're winning all the time, realistically, when you take the full course of time that you spent into this endeavor, it's going to be a smaller percentage that you've actually won a lead or a sale. You can win small victories, but when it comes to actually getting the close and accomplishing that, that's going to be a smaller percentage. So you don't want to focus on this majority. You want to focus on this minority so that it becomes more of a majority, if you follow me on that. But the average talk time being around 1.5 minutes seems to be the right mark, where if you're talking to some people for 5 minutes, you're talking to some people for 20 seconds, it happens. You don't get past that 30-second mark. Let's face it, a lot of us, even the best of us out there, the pros, the amateurs, in fact, I see a lot of amateurs get past that 30-second mark more than I do pros sometimes. It just depends on the day, I guess. But what's really important about it is that if your average talk time tends to be about 1.5 minutes, and you have a lot of calls that are under 1.5 minutes, that means that you've had more calls that are over 1.5 minutes. That's how you're coming out to this average talk time of 1 minute and 30 seconds, right? So sometimes to be able to help generate that, and believe it or not, this works, you might want to talk to people a little bit longer than you normally would. People that you are not going to get the sale. There's so many people out there that, oh, I got to get to the next call. I got to get to the next call. And they're in such a hurry to get to the next call that when that call comes up, they pass it up. They go right by it. I've done it myself, and I know you have too. If you've ever done telemarketing, I know you've done this. You can tell me whatever you want. You can tell your friends whatever you want, but you have to tell yourself the truth. So if you get in the habit of getting in a conversation with somebody, you get in the habit of talking past that 1.5 minutes, when it comes time for those calls to be there that you need to be on the phone for past 1.5 minutes, you'll be there. You won't be in such a rush to let them go. So many people are in such a rush to get rid of the client when typically, if the client's giving you some resistance, it's an objection. An objection really is a concern, which is a question. And if they have a question, sometimes questions just don't come off the top of your head. You've got to think about them for a second. Give the client the opportunity to think about the questions that he has, that he needs answers to, so that he can make an educated decision. Because he may want to make a purchase with you, but he can't tell you, he can't give you that leverage Just like when you walk into the store to buy a TV or you go into the lot to buy a car, you can't just walk up and say, I'm here to buy a car today. You just lost a lot of leverage if there's any negotiations going on, and you know it and they know it. So don't put them in that position, but give them the opportunity to think of their objections. Give them the opportunity to think of their buying questions. And those come more past that minute and a half mark typically, definitely past the 30-second mark. That's when they're starting to be honest with you. That's when they're actually giving you information that you can use to get the sale or to get the appointment or whatever your goal is at the end of the call. Now, the other thing that's key with getting past, once you get past the 30-second mark is typically when this point comes, but sometimes it's right beneath that too. Same thing with the Blueberries. It can come right around that point, and that's asking questions and then shutting up. You gotta listen. You gotta allow them to talk. There's so many marketers out there that have been trained to override the conversation. It's fear, is what it is. It's either fear or it's a statistic for a large call center that's decided that if we continue talking to enough people, we will get these results, and they can control those results, rather than training good marketers. And good marketers, good sales reps, they know you ask questions and you listen to the client, and they will tell you how to sell them. I learned that a long time ago, and I'm so glad I learned it, because I used to be one of those people that anytime they started to talk, I'd interrupt. Now, I don't care what they're saying to me. I shut up. When they talk, I shut up. They don't hang up on me. I wait for them right when they finish, and then I interject. Then it's my turn to talk. And if they interrupt me again, once again, I shut up. But I listen. I'm listening to what they're saying so that when I respond after they said something, it's relating to what they said. There's nothing worse than somebody says that they don't have the time to do something right now, and you say, don't worry about it, it doesn't cost you anything. Once again, the only thing they're hearing is, I don't care what you have to say, I want your money, and this is why you're going to give it to me. Don't treat them like the client, or they will treat you like the salesman, and you won't get the sale. This has been Jerry Watkins. This is the introduction. Best of luck to you.